What's the dumbest thing your significant other has said or done? I asked him to plant a baby tree in the back garden. The next day I saw it and thought it looked strange. Walked up and it had been planted upside down. He thought the roots were tiny limp branches. Laughed for days. I'm a gardener and this is one of our running jokes whenever someone asks us whether we know how to plant something. Yeah, sure, the green end goes right into the ground, right? She's not very good with words and English is her first language. I got freezer bite on my hands. Her idioms also need some work. You sound like the wolf who cried you opened up a whole new worm. I had a kid prior to getting together with my fiancée and having a second daughter. The father of my eldest is not in the picture and my wonderful fiancé has taken her on as his own. To the point that he frequently forgets that she isn't his genetic offspring. We were at a holiday party at his parents' house. I was talking to my future sil about my eldest and her night terrors when fiancé pops off with she gets that from my side of the family. Cue really confused faces all around. His sister sat there and started questioning what other genetic diseases my eldest has magically got from stepdad. It took a few minutes before he figured it out. I love this man. We were driving through some back roads and past a couple pastures. She saw some cows and started very excitedly trying to get my attention, grabbing on my arm and saying, babe, look how fat those horses are. I have never let it go, and she still doesn't think it's funny. We bought a new car. She asked me if I changed the settings to Spanish because it said back ajar on the dash when the door was up. As I'm in labor with our daughter, my husband asks, do you want her to have an innie or an outie belly button? Weird question, but whatever. So I tell him I don't mind either way, both are cute. And then he says yeah, but when the doctor asks, which should we pick for her, he thought when they clamp the umbilical cord, parents tell the doctor the type of belly button they prefer. He's really smart, I promise. When my wife and I started dating in the mid 1980s, she knew I was a huge fan of David Letterman. She said she had a huge surprise for me as she had tickets to see Letterman at a local venue. I was confused since David Letterman did not tour. I looked at the tickets she purchased and they were for the old 60s band The Letterman. We didn't go, but I married her. 30 years this September. One time my husband called me at work. Babe, you're gonna be mad. I made a mess, but don't worry, I'll fix it. I didn't even ask, just sighed, because he is basically Lucy from I Love Lucy. When I got home a little bit later, it was to a living room covered in grey powder. My husband completely filthy with a trash bag and broom and a super panicked look on his face. Turned out Head decided to help around the house and wanted to clean the fireplace. Head just decided the best way to do it would be to stand in front of it with a trash bag and use the leaf blower to blow the ashes in. Spoiler, that doesn't work. I didn't want to hurt his feelings, but I laughed my ass off, and it's still one of my favorite weird things has done. I'll answer for my wife. I had gone to Home Depot to pick up a trailer hitch bolt for my truck. I didn't realize that they had different shaft sizes and I didn't know which size I needed, so I called my wife and this conversation took place. Me, are you at the house? Yeah. Why? Me, can you go out to the driveway and measure the hole in the bumper of my truck? It should be either 1/2 inch or 3/4 inch. There's a pause. Isn't your truck with you? Yes. Yes it was. That was how I had gotten to Home Depot. I forgot. My favorite memory of my parents is going to some fast food joint. Through the drive-thru, mom is driving and giving our orders to the cashier. Just as she finishes, my dad casually says to go my mom, and she turns back to the cashier and says to go. 2 seconds of buffering later, and she slaps my dad full on in the chest, who is laughing freaking hysterically. Don't think we've ever let her live that down. Edit. Holy shoot. Thanks for the silver y'all. My girlfriend in college attended my graduation and afterwards says to me, man, there were a lot of people with the name Lordy. Each time someone was given their degree, it was announced whether they were graduating cum laude or not. My girlfriend thought America's largest family graduated from university with me that day, the Lordy family, and they all looked unrelated. My deeply intelligent wife lost her car Like left it in a parking lot and somehow got home on Friday. Monday morning I get a text, "Where's my car?" She's gonna finish her medical degree next year. My boyfriend, as we were looking up at the beautiful night sky. Wow, there's so much we don't know about the universe. Like where the stars go during the day. Are they still there? If not, where do they go? He was dead serious. My husband and I were at Canadian Tire, and they had tiny examples of tents, basically looked like they were made for Barbie dolls, and the pricing for each underneath. He turned to me shocked and asked, "Why are these so expensive for such tiny tents?" I almost died laughing. My husband had a similar brain fart at Walmart. We were shopping for baby stuff, and they had a miniature version of a nursing/rocking chair on display. He says, "What's the point of that? I don't think any baby would enjoy sitting in that." Then it dawned on him. My now ex-girlfriend got a Polaroid camera for Christmas. Jokingly one day I said, "Does it take videos?" And she very seriously said, "I'm sure it does, but I haven't tried that feature yet." As we were driving along the road we saw a horse with its head over a gate. We slowed down. She opens the window and says, "Moo." We were sitting in a bus in the middle of heavy rush hour traffic. I'm kind of a car geek, so I spotted a mint condition 1970s classic Mustang. I just went and said, "Look honey, a car." There were hundreds of them. I don't think she'll let me live this down. We were on a walk in a rural area with lots of farmers' fields full of sheep and cows. She looks off to a field in the distance, turns around to me, and says, "Why do they keep birds in a field?" Edit, worded badly, they were actually birds in the field, but it was in fact an empty field with birds just hanging out, and she thought it was some kind of bird farm, haha. Late to the party, but my parents have an extremely ugly little dog. Like, this thing is unfortunate. A cross between a chihuahua and some sort of lesser demon. Buddy eyes, underbite, just ugly. And she picks on my dogs, so she's not my favorite. But this little creature adores my husband. One day, he came into my parents' house from work. I was already there, and ugly dog runs up to him like she just won the lottery. He scoops her up, laughing, and completely without thinking. He said, "TikTok maiden, why is it that only the ugly girls like me?" There was dead silence, and his expression blanched in slow motion. It was like someone looking down and realizing they had shoot all over the floor. I said nothing, just got up and walked outside, the sounds of his pitiful groveling following me. "Not you. I didn't mean you. Oh my god, I'm so sorry, I didn't." I know he meant nothing by it, but to this day my entire family gives him shoot for it. He definitely paid for the faux pas, lol. Once me and my so went for a walk around a local nature reserve. On the way in we got a map given to us, so we could navigate the area. Later on the walk she is looking at the map, and says to me, "These maps really need a "you are here" on them." It took me a second to realize what she meant, so I explained that it's a handheld map and that it won't be possible. It took 4/5 attempts before it clicked with her. Edit, thank you for my first silver. I love my husband, but I have watched him empty a vacuum cleaner bag into a wire waster basket. I, on the other hand, am frequently unable to remember common words and have to resort to saying things like "the box you put stuff in to make it cold." One time while dating my now wife, we got into a playful pinching fight while I was driving. Probably not a great idea, but we were young. She starts getting frustrated and pinching harder, but my right arm was hooked on her left arm, like when you walk together with your arms hooked in movies. She pinched herself and thought it was me. She pinched so hard she screamed and got mad. Her next reaction was what made me almost crash. She doubled down and did it again harder and screamed even louder. Somehow she didn't realize it was her arm the way we were hooked together, even though in that position I had no way to touch her. She was getting pissed because I was cracking up. Just remembering her anger then confusing always makes me laugh. Edit, wow, gold and silver thanks. My wife says it's not cool you all laughing at her. I'm glad everyone enjoyed the story though. My boyfriend didn't realize Apple Maps gives directions. He called me in a panic because he was lost and didn't know how to get home. I calmly told him to open Maps and type in our address and it'll navigate him home. He wouldn't believe me. He insisted that Apple Maps is just a general map of your nearby area. I pleaded and pleaded with him to just try it and he refused. He eventually made it home an hour later, which I then sat him down and showed him how to use Apple Maps. Tried to make baked potatoes in the microwave for the first time. Wrapped them in tinfoil. Came to ask me why there were lightning bolts in the microwave and why was it getting very hot. We were driving one day and were stopped at a red light. She's looking at a sign and the following exchange occurs. Huh, what a dumb name for a street. Me. Huh, what street? Huh, Bone Marrow Drive. Who would name a street Bone Marrow Drive? It was a sign for a local Bone Marrow Drive that would be taking place, not the name of the street. We still talk about it to this day. My boyfriend, now husband, and I were playing cash cab when we first started dating. For those of you who don't know the concept of this game, you have to try to answer as many questions as you can in a short amount of time. So you obviously answer really fast. My question to him was, what animal in Africa kills the most people a year? And he blurted out very loudly, ants. I laughed so hard I was crying. 11 years later we still every once in a while look at each other with a wild look in our eyes and yell ants. My sister-in-law, who works at a primary school as an assistant teacher, once told my brother that she didn't know how to pronounce a word when she was doing a spelling test, so she spelt it out. Now ex-girlfriend from high school. Her power had gone out in the neighboring town. She called crying saying she had so much homework to complete. I said to drive to my house since I still had power. She yelled at me saying, how dare you attempt to get me to drive? How do you expect me to do that? My headlights won't work. It didn't last much longer after that. He picked up our friend's keys, thinking one of her keychains was a laser pointer. It was mace. He got a nice spray to the face, and I was sitting right next to him, so I got a lovely dose as well. For the next 30 minutes or so the entire apartment was coughing and dying and trying to air the place out. Even our friend who was upstairs showering could feel the effects. Still love him though. Update. BF wants to clarify he thought it was a lighter or air freshener, not a laser. Still doesn't help. Is case very much lol. When me and my wife first moved in together, while we were dating, I had to change out the power cord on my dryer so that it would work in the new place. Pretty simple and common thing to do, going from a 3-prong to a 4-prong power cord. Bought the new one at Walmart and was in the process of removing the old one when I hear a loud brap and the lights went out. I immediately asked her what happened and she responded, I wanted to make sure we got the right plug, so I test fit it. Thank God she was holding the insulation and not the exposed end of the wire. 2 weeks later she put my skillet in the dishwasher. I cook and clean and she cuts the grass. We have our shoot figured out now. In our language, maple and moose are almost the same word. To make it short, she thought maple syrup was made out of moose horn. Now X was at a stoplight, the light changed, and he pulled forward too quickly, hitting the car in front of him. Without getting out to look, he figured there was no damage and just took off. A couple of days later he got a call from the local police, who had tracked down his license plate, saying he technically left the scene of an accident. Nobody was pressing charges, but he had to go down to the police station so they could issue a citation and to give them his insurance info for the police report. He told them he'd come in after he got off work, which he did, but not before making the brilliant decision to stop at a bar and have a few drinks first. The police smelled it on him, said they couldn't let him drive home, and kept him overnight. He is super grossed out my periods. When I asked him what he would do if we had a daughter, he replied, I just won't change her diaper that time of the month. My husband called work one day and my daughter took the call. She came and said, Daddy made chili and cornbread for dinner. I replied, but we don't have any cornmeal. Sitting down for dinner he proudly served the cornbread. Taste it. It was crunchy with hard little bits in it. He had put popcorn in the coffee grinder. His recipe was Bisquick and ground popcorn. He is infamous for his recipe substitutions. My eldest child was born in December 2004. This was the year that we found out that London had won the bid for the 2012 Olympics. It was announced that children born on 20/12 would get free entry to the Olympics. But what if they are not any good at sports? I had to gently explain that it was free entry to watch the Olympics. I could write a book. Couple of examples. She thought dragons existed. Now, I don't even mean she thought they were the same as dinosaurs. I mean her favorite movie is How to Train Your Dragon, and she believed that those movies accurately portrayed how Vikings lived. She genuinely thought Vikings and dragons lived alongside each other. I don't know if she thought that Vikings actually rode the dragons or not, but at the very least she believed they coexisted. She believed that the earth is made of water. She thought you could just swim to the bottom of the ocean and come out on the other side of the freaking planet. That one took a long time to convince her that she had it wrong. Heck, I'm not even certain I have convinced her. My husband doesn't think his way through stuff sometimes, and also doesn't listen to instruction very well. So one time he's trying to tear down part of our pole barn that had a tree fall on it, while I sat on the porch steps thinking I should make a video of this entitled "All the Things You Should Not Do While Demolishing a Building," because he's out there trying to knock one of the supports out while standing under the barn roof. Finally the support comes free, and what do you know? Part of the roof falls on him. He was absolutely unhurt. I ambled up to him and was like, "I don't want to say I told you so, but..."
N.